Hey, spooky people, it's your best friend Kenny here, and we have another entry in the Unsolved Mysteries and Weird Things Iceberg by JuanThePickle. This is part 3 of tier 2 of this Iceberg series. You can watch the other videos in this tier and in the first tier. They're available. I have them in a playlist. Go ahead, watch them. They're worth your time, I promise. And the idea is with an iceberg chart is that the top part of the iceberg chart are things that most people know, most people would recognize, most people are aware of. And as you go deeper and deeper into the iceberg chart, the more obscure, disturbing, and strange the entries on the chart get. So this is tier 2. This is part 3. This is the last part of tier 2. You know, you could just turn this on and watch this as a playlist, you know, treat it like a podcast, do whatever you need to do. Or, you know, you can watch the videos out of order. As long as you watch the videos, I don't care. So, all right, everybody, let's get spooky. The Axeman of New Orleans. The Axeman of New Orleans was an unidentified American serial killer active in New Orleans, Louisiana from May 1918 to October 1919. The key characteristics of the Axeman's crimes are, as his name suggests, he primarily used an axe, and that axe often belonged to the victims themselves. The Axeman would typically gain entry to homes by chiseling out a panel on the back door. Many of the victims were Italian immigrants or Italian Americans, which leads to speculation that the killer's motives were racism. And the crimes were not motivated by robbery, as the Axeman didn't steal anything from the victims' homes. The Axeman's actions were often brutal and seemingly random, adding to the public's fear and confusion. In March 1919, a letter that has been attributed to the Axeman was published in local newspapers. It's kind of crazy that they used to just sort of publish these criminals' letters in newspapers. Like, we used to give these people a platform. Oh, yeah, he's a serial killer. Let's publish his letter in the newspaper, right? You know, I guess now we got Twitter, right? Facebook. I think most serial killers are probably on Facebook. Anyway, March 1999, a letter that he wrote was published in local newspapers. He claimed to be a supernatural entity and offered to spare the lives of those who played jazz music in their homes. This led to jazz clubs being filled and many residents playing jazz records loudly in their homes. Maybe this was all just like a viral marketing technique for jazz. The Axeman abruptly stopped killing people in late 1919, and the killer was never identified. And these murders remain unsolved to this day. The Lake Champlain Monster. Champy. The Lake Champlain Monster, or Champy, as he's affectionately known, is the legendary lake monster that is said to inhabit Lake Champlain. This is a large body of freshwater lake nestled between New York and Vermont. And tales of this creature have been around for centuries. Here's what we know about Champy. Champy is often depicted as a serpentine creature with a long neck and humps protruding from the water. Some people have described it having a horse-like head or even flippers. Sounds like a cousin of the Loch Ness Monster. The size of Champy is said to be anywhere between 10 and 200 feet long. It's pretty big. Pretty big size discrepancy. The native and indigenous people in the area had legends of a giant lake serpent that they referred to as Gettyscock. while Samuel de Champlain, the lake's namesake, is often credited with the first European sighting in 1609. There have been hundreds of reported sightings of Champy over the years, with some even capturing blurry photos and videos. The most famous being the Mansi photograph, taken in 1977. While many believe Champy to be a real creature, possibly a dinosaur or some other known species, skeptics think that it might be a large sturgeon, floating logs, or unusual wave formations that could be mistaken for a monster. Look, I want to believe in Champy. All right. I want Champy to be real. Regardless, both the state of New York and the state of Vermont have officially declared Champy to be a protected species. So you can't go out there and hunt Champy. That's why there's no Champy hunting shows. Like, I wonder why no one has made Bigfoot a protected species. It's a good question. Not really fair to old Bigfoot, is it? The Baltic Sea Anomaly. The Baltic Sea Anomaly, a 200-foot diameter circular object discovered on the floor of the northern Baltic Sea in 2011. Its unusual features have given it the reputation as being a sunken UFO. However, the most widely accepted explanation is that it's just a natural geological formation. The Baltic Sea Anomaly was discovered by a diving team while they were treasure hunting in the Baltic Sea. So I guess they found a pretty incredible treasure if this is in fact a UFO, right? It's at the center of the Gulf of Bothnia, approximately 300 feet below the surface. Some believe that it appears to be a man-made or other entity-made object. The scientific consensus is that it's most likely a natural geological formation, possibly a glacial erratic or volcanic rock formation. See, personally, I want it to be a sunken UFO, but I don't think it is. I don't think that this is a sunken UFO. I bet it's just a big old rock. There's another theory that it's like some sort of remnant of some sort of either ancient or lost civilization. That might be cool too, if it's some sort of lost civilization, artifact. But it looks like the scientific analysis has shown that geological surveys and rock samples from the site suggest that the object is composed of minerals commonly found in the region. So unlikely, despite the fact that we want this bad boy to be a UFO, unlikely. But maybe. The Multiverse Theory. I think most people know about the Multiverse Theory just thanks to the whole Marvel thing. But most people might not know that this is a broader theory and not just limited to Marvel, the Marvel universe. But, the idea is our universe might not be the only one. And instead, there could be an infinite number of universes existing alongside ours. These universes, the multiverse, could have different physical laws, different constants, and even different dimensions. Some people fantasize that the laws of physics that govern our universe, like gravity, might be different in other universes. And fundamental constants like the speed of light or the gravitational constant could have different values in different universes. I feel like this type of theory is very fun to think about. And maybe it might be true, right? We don't know. But it's also the type of thing that just sort of like the deeper you go into it, the more it sort of like plays with your mind and kind of blows your mind. This idea that, there's always like the idea that, you exist that you exist in all these different other universes, and every time you make a choice, the opposite choice becomes, there's these branches off into these other universes and stuff like that. And you know what? Like I don't really necessarily have, strong opinions that this is like true. I'm not arguing with people that this is real, but I also, I'm open to it. I don't really see a problem with thinking about that. It's at least a fun intellectual exercise at best. And what else are we here for other than intellectual exercise, right? The Jim twins. The Jim twins are a famous case study in the field of twins research. Jim Springer and Jim Lewis were identical twins separated at 4 weeks old and raised by different adoptive families. They were reunited at age 39 in 1979, and their story became a fascinating example of the influence of genetics on personality, preferences, and life choices. Despite growing up in different environments, the Jim twins shared an incredible number of similarities. Both were named James by their adoptive parents. Both married women named Linda, then got divorced and remarried women named Betty. That's pretty weird. Both had sons, one named James Allen with 2 L's and the other named James Allen with 1 L. Both had dogs named Toy. Both had similar habits like chain smoking, nail biting, and enjoying carpentry. But who doesn't enjoy carpentry? Their case caught the attention of Dr. Thomas Bouchard of the University of Minnesota, who conducted extensive research on twins separated at birth. The Jim twins participated in this study and underwent numerous tests and interviews. This sort of is a life example of the nature versus nurture debate, right? Despite being raised apart, it suggested that there's a strong genetic component to personality and life choices. Ted's caving page. This is an old school one for, a lot of you people who have been chronically online for a long time, but Ted's caving page refers to a classic piece of internet horror fiction that originated in the early 2000s. It's one of the earliest examples of creepypasta, which is internet slang for horror stories that are copied and pasted around online forums and websites. The story is presented as a series of blog posts written by a man named Ted who explores a mysterious cave with his friends. As they venture deeper, they encounter strange phenomena and unsettling discoveries, and the blog entries become increasingly more disturbed. The story is told through text entries, photos, and diagrams. And the writing style is simple and amateurish, which adds the authenticity of the writing and makes it more creepy. Ted's caving page was originally posted on Angel Fire. Remember Angel Fire? Damn. It quickly became popular. It spread across online forums and communities and social media. And I know a lot of people now sort of look back at these old stories with nostalgia. You can look up online on YouTube and find, readings of the original Ted's caving page. You can also find sort of like modern takes on Ted's caving page or other ways of doing Ted's caving page or Ted the Caver. It's a very influential work, and I'm not sure that we really know who wrote it, which is sort of wild. Someone wrote this thing in the early internet, probably in their basement, and it became legendary. And, we don't know who the author was. So it's worth checking out if, if you like internet horror or you have like sort of nostalgic for creepy old internet stuff. The Hat Man. The Hat Man is a shadowy figure who often occurs in sleep paralysis experiences. He's depicted as a tall, dark silhouetted man with a wide-brimmed hat obscuring his face, sometimes with a long coat. The Hat Man, or, the man in the black hat, as he's generally referred to, is also sort of a thing with people who abuse Benadryl. They often claim that, if you take a whole bunch of Benadryl that you see the Hat Man. He's also associated with sleep paralysis. Some believe he's a type of shadow person. Some believe he's some sort of paranormal entity, or just some sort of mutual hallucination. One thing that's interesting about the Benadryl theory, though, is there are a lot of people who abuse Benadryl. And yeah, people do abuse Benadryl. But I mean, people abuse anything, right? But there are a lot of people who abuse Benadryl who claim they have seen the Hat Man. And you go in some of these more disturbed internet forums and they'll talk about, oh yeah, the Hat Man came to visit me, and everyone sort of describes them in their own way. And, the question is, well, what came first? The Hat Man or the idea of the Hat Man getting in people's heads and then seeing the Hat Man? What is sort of interesting is, there are visions and sightings of the Hat Man across a lot of different cultures in various different cultures' folklore. So, this type of individual, this Hat Man, this dark Hat Man, is something that pops up in a lot of different places. So that sort of gives credence to this idea that, this paranormal figure or this shared hallucination is tied to something more than just word of mouth. Shadow people. Similar to the Hat Man, shadow people are also a phenomenon that's been reported in many cultures throughout history. Again, a dark, shadowy figure that is seen either in peripheral vision or altered states of consciousness, perhaps at night during sleep paralysis. They appear as human-shaped silhouettes, though at times they're described as having glowing red eyes. They move quickly and erratically across the edge of vision and disappearing when directly seen, or, your eyes are directly when your eyes are directly on them. This sort of reminds me of, how every once in a while you'll see something in your periphery and you think it's someone, or you think it's a person or a creature. And, then you look and there's nothing there. That's sort of what this sort of idea is, at least to me. And then it sort of seems like the idea of shadow people gives it sort of a name. I think that, there's a lot of different explanations for what this could be, right? It could just be weird lighting, optical illusions created by, reflections in glass or mirrors or, appliances or whatever. And then people who are just sort of like anxious, you tend to see stuff when you're anxious or tired. And then people with other sorts of, mental health conditions can also sort of see things that could be interpreted as shadow people. So, I don't really believe in the concept of like an actual entity known as the shadow people. But I do believe that there are a lot of people who see sort of shadow entities and then sort of prescribe this sort of paranormal occurrence to them. Though it's probably just seeing things. Frano Selak. Frano Selak was a Croatian music teacher who became famous for an incredible string of near-death experiences and then winning the lottery. Hey! Selak claimed to have cheated death at least 7 different times between 1962 and 1996. It's kind of like those Final Destination movies. I don't know if I'm dating myself with those, but 1962, a train derailed and plunged into an icy river, killing 17 passengers. And Selak was on that train and only suffered a broken arm and hypothermia. In 1963, he was sucked out of a plane's malfunctioning door and landed in a haystack while the plane crashed, killing 19 people. In 1966, a bus he was on skidded off the road and into a river, which killed 4 passengers. Selak swam to safety. 1970, his car caught fire while he was driving, and he managed to escape before the fuel tank exploded. 1973, another car fire caused flames to shoot through his air vents, singeing his hair. Ooh. 1995, he was hit by a bus, but only sustained minor injuries. In 1996, he drove off a cliff to avoid a head-on collision with a United Nations truck. He managed to jump out of the car and grab a tree, watching as his car plummeted 300 feet into a ravine. Then, in 2003, he won the lottery. He won approximately $1 million in the Croatian lottery. And he turned out to be incredibly lucky after all that unluckiness. Now, I got to tell you, man, this guy needs to just sort of avoid traveling. What, you got? Train crash, plane crash, multiple car problems. Stay home, dude. Stay home. Anyway, he died in 2016 at the age of 87. So basically made it to old age, right? Now, a lot of people think he's embellishing a lot of these stories, but I think it would be pretty easy to sort of put together, okay, did this plane crash happen? You know, some of the other stuff may be less easy. You know, the train crashes should also be documented too, but maybe the car stuff embellished a little bit. But like I said, he should just avoid travel. And if you saw that guy on a plane, get off the plane, right? The Fly Geyser. The Fly Geyser, pretty fly for a geyser. No. The Fly Geyser is a colorful geothermal geyser located on a private island in Nevada. It's often described as otherworldly due to its vibrant hues and unusual formations. In 1916, a well was drilled for the site, but the water was too hot for irrigation. The well was abandoned, and a calcium carbonate cone formed over time, creating the geyser. I didn't even know that's how geysers were created until I did this research. So, the Fly Geyser consists of multiple cones constantly erupting water. The thermophilic algae that thrive in this hot water create a stunning array of colors ranging from green and red to orange and yellow. It's located on Fly Ranch, a 3,800-acre property in northern Nevada, which is about 20 miles north of Gerlach, Nevada. The ranch was purchased by the Burning Man Project in 2016. And the Burning Man Project offers limited public access through a guided nature walk. And you must book a tour in advance to see the geyser up close. I would imagine the geyser is probably pretty popular among the Burning Man people. The Burning Man Project is committed to protecting this land so that it's in good hands, so nothing bad is going to happen to it. Sigur the Mighty. Sigur the Mighty was a powerful Viking earl who ruled over Orkney and parts of northern Scotland in the 9th century. He's a prominent figure in Norse sagas, known for his conquests, his ruthlessness, and his rather unusual death. Sigurd would lead Viking raids and expanded his territory to include parts of mainland Scotland, conquering Caithness in Sutherland. He was often called the Mighty, and he was known for his ambition and his willingness to use any means necessary to achieve his goals. He died an unusual death. He fought a battle against a Scottish chieftain named Mile Brigd. Sigur won the battle through treachery, bringing 80 men to a 40-on-40 fight. Oh, what an asshole. What a jackass. After he killed his opponent, Sigurd tied the severed head to his saddle as a trophy. But the head's buck teeth scratched Sigurd's leg during the ride and caused a wound that would become infected. The infection spread and led to his death. You know what they say, like, a human bite is actually worse for you than like a dog bite. And that's like nowadays. Like, could you imagine how bad like people's oral hygiene was, in the 900s or the Viking times? Oh man, I bet it was terrible. It was probably disgusting. People's breath was probably horrifying. Dark energy. Dark energy is a mysterious and pervasive force that constitutes about 68% of the total energy density in the universe. It's one of the biggest mysteries in modern cosmology, and its existence has been observed during the accelerating expansion of the universe. Here's what we know, or what we think we know, about dark energy. In the late 1990s, astronomers made the startling discovery that the expansion of the universe isn't slowing down as expected due to gravity. Instead, it's speeding up. This acceleration is attributed to dark energy. Observations of distant supernovae, or exploding stars, have provided primary evidence for dark energy. These exploding stars appear dimmer than expected, suggesting they are farther away than they should be if the universe were expanding at a constant rate. The cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang, also provides evidence for dark energy. Its pattern suggests the presence of a force counteracting gravity. Ooh, see, that's spooky. It's like a level of spooky that we don't really talk about, like just sort of like the whatever is out there, right? Unlike gravity, which pulls things together, dark energy acts as a repulsive force, pushing things apart. Kind of like pickles. Pickles push things apart. Dark energy appears to be evenly distributed throughout space. The density of dark energy appears to remain constant even as the universe expands, which is unusual for normal matter and energy. The leading theory is that dark energy is a property of space itself, represented by Einstein's cosmological constant. This constant energy density would permeate space and drive the acceleration. Another theory is that dark energy is a dynamic field called quintessence, which could vary in strength over time and space. Other theories suggest that our understanding of gravity is incomplete, and modifications to Einstein's general relativity could explain the accelerating expansion without the need for dark energy. Scientists haven't directly detected dark energy, making it difficult to actually study it. So the nature of dark energy is a theoretical challenge, and scientists are working to develop models that can explain its observed effects. Upcoming space telescopes and surveys, such as the Euclid mission and the Vera C. Rubin Observatory, are designed to provide a more precise measurements of the universe's expansion and help unravel the mystery of dark energy. Ooh. again, it's just sort of wild to think, we're these just like, we're not even specks, we're these little tiny microscopic things floating around on rocks. And there's all this other stuff out there, right? It's kind of like an existential spookiness. Dark flow. Dark flow is a controversial theory in astrophysics that attempts to explain the motion of galaxy clusters. Some studies have suggested that a large group of galaxy clusters are moving in a roughly uniform direction at very high speeds, flowing towards something. This collective motion is called dark flow. Suggests that these clusters are being pulled together towards a specific region of space outside our observable universe. Dark flow involves the movement of hundreds of galaxy clusters over vast distances. The flow appears to be directed towards a region in the southern constellations of Centaurus and Hydra. Whether dark flow even exists is heavily debated in the scientific community, with some studies supporting it and others finding no evidence for it. If dark flow is real, it means that the existence of massive structures beyond the universe that we can observe are gravitationally influencing the motion of these clusters. It could be the remains of structures or forces that existed in the very early universe before the inflation of the universe smoothed out the distribution of matter. Skeptic scientists argue that the observed dark flow could just be systematic errors in the data or analysis methods used in the studies. If dark flow is real, it could challenge our current understanding of cosmology, the distribution of matter in the universe, and astrophysics in general. Now, these last two subjects, dark matter and dark energy, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a physicist. I'm not qualified to really discuss this. I did some research on it, and I was able to, be somewhat conversant in what I learned for this video. If you're interested in dark matter or dark energy, I suggest that you go, after you finish watching this video, of course, do some research and find some, more capable sources. And I'll link some capable sources in the comments so you can review them. I just think that these ideas are fascinating and neat. And, this all sort of fits together in sort of like these spooky ideals, right? If the universe is huge beyond our basic understanding, there almost has to be life out there, right? Like, I feel like Fox Mulder. I want to believe. String theory. String theory is a theoretical framework in physics that replaces the point-like particles of particle physics with one-dimensional objects called strings. The theory reconciles quantum mechanics with general relativity and provides a unified description of all fundamental forces in matter. Instead of treating particles as zero-dimensional points, string theory proposes that they are tiny, one-dimensional vibrating strings. Just like the different vibrations of a guitar produce different musical notes, different vibrations of these strings give rise to different particles with unique properties like mass and charge. String theory's purpose is to bridge the gap between general relativity, which describes gravity on a large scale, and quantum mechanics, which governs the behavior of particles on a subatomic level. It aims to provide a single, consistent framework that can explain all the fundamental forces of nature, including gravity, electromagnetism, and strong and weak nuclear forces. String theory requires the existence of extra spatial dimensions beyond the three that we experience, length, width, and height. These extra dimensions are thought to be curled up or compactified at incredibly small scales, making them undetectable to us. 11BX1371. I'm sorry, I don't know if that's the proper way to pronounce this, but it's the way I'm pronouncing it. 11BX1371 is a creepy, mysterious video that went viral in 2015. It's a short black and white film featuring a person wearing a plague doctor costume in a dilapidated, abandoned building. The video is filled with disturbing imagery, codes, and strange audio. The video contains hidden messages in various forms, including Morse code, cipher, and visual cues. The internet, of course, decoded these messages, and it revealed some disturbing phrases and images. The combination of the plague doctor costume, which is always creepy, especially post-COVID, the eerie setting, and the distorted audio creates an unsettling atmosphere. The video was originally sent to a Swedish tech blog with no information about the creator or purpose. And of course, its mysteriousness and the anonymity fueled speculation. What the hell is this thing? So the internet speculated. Some of the theories range from that it's a similar art project to some type of threat. The plague doctor is a central element of the video, invoking imagery of disease, death, and pandemics. The abandoned building adds to the sense of decay and isolation. The coded messages add a layer of mystery and challenge to the viewers who are trying to decipher the meaning. And the distorted soundtrack enhances the disturbing atmosphere and adds to the sense of unease. 11BX1371 quickly went viral and was the subject of discussion on social media. And it became a classic example of an internet mystery, with audiences trying to decipher its cryptic nature and unsettling content. So naturally, people want to figure out, well, what does this mean? What does this video mean? And the answer is it's probably art. Like most strange YouTube videos, other strange things that you see on the internet, it's probably art. And it's probably commentary, and it was probably designed, to be cryptic and weird to go viral. The Markovian Parallax Denigrate. The Markovian Parallax Denigrate is one of the first internet mysteries. It started in 1996 as a series of cryptic messages posted to Usenet, a pre-internet discussion system. Usenet was before my internet time, but I'm sure some of you old heads know all about it. The messages appeared to be gibberish and were all titled Markovian Parallax Denigrate. These posts contained seemingly random words and phrases, often completely nonsensical and out of context. They were all posted by a user identified as Susan Lindauer. And, like the last entry, or like a lot of these entries, the cryptic nature of these messages made people want to know, well, what the hell does this stuff mean? And nobody knows. No one's been able to decipher a coherent message or figure out the purpose. No one knows who Susan Londier is. Some people think she was a real person. Others believe it's a pseudonym. Others believe it might be the name of the program that created these messages. There are a few theories. The first is that this was an AI experiment. An AI experiment that didn't work too great. Others want to believe it's a secret government project. Always the government, right? Other people believe it's a elaborate hoax or early trolling on the internet. Some people believe it's a person who has mental health issues making a cry for help. Personally, if I had to guess, I would presume it was, some sort of form of early trolling. Maybe not trolling in the way that we understand trolling today, but, likely somebody who had come up with this idea to do something weird online and see what happens and see what kind of attention it could get. And, they were successful. I also like the idea of like an early AI program, though. Like the program is spitting out these random things. And that theory really isn't incongruous with the idea that this is trolling, right? Like the person who was sending the messages or running the AI program in a way is sort of trolling by letting all those messages out without a meeting. Black-eyed children. Not the black-eyed peas. We're not getting it started here. Black-eyed children are a chilling urban legend that has circulated online since the late 1990s. They are children typically between the ages of 6 and 16 with pale skin and completely black eyes. There's a lot of movies about this. The black-eyed children sort of appear in a lot of different movies. The striking feature of the child or the children are the solid black eyes with no white or iris. They often have unusually pale or gray skin. Their clothing is usually described as ordinary, although outdated perhaps. The black-eyed children are often encountered at doorways, asking to be let inside a house or a car. They may claim to need to use the phone or need help. Sometimes they're allowed in, they disappear. People who encounter them report a strong sense of dread, fear, or anxiety. Again, unclear if, just seeing this weird thing makes the people afraid, or they just have that sort of, that people are already feeling afraid and anxious. And then they see them, right? The legend is often traced to Brian Bethel, a Texas reporter, and his account in 1998, where he described an encounter with two black-eyed kids in a parking lot. The story quickly went viral online. One thing that's interesting about black-eyed children story, or the black-eyed children, urban legend, is there are lots of stories in folklore and mythology from other times and other cultures that also encounter demons and other sort of entities with black eyes who try to use deception to gain entry into homes. My opinion on this is this is just sort of a concept that's sort of in our collective subconscious. We've heard of this stuff for so long. Maybe people are either having nightmares or hallucinating or seeing things that cause them to see, this type of entity. The singing sand dunes. Kazakhstan's singing sand dunes, very nice. Kazakhstan's singing sand dunes, or singing sands, are a natural phenomenon located in the Atlan-Emel National Park near the town of Basi. The dunes are famous for producing a unique sound reminiscent of singing or humming when the wind blows or when people walk on them. The dunes are composed of a fine dry sand which can range in color from golden to reddish. And the sand has a specific size and shape that allows them to create a sound as they rub against each other. The sound's created by the vibration of the sand particles as they move, and the sound can vary in pitch and volume depending on factors such as the wind, the moisture content, and the size of the sand grains. And the singing sound may be a low rumble or a high-pitched whistle. Good news, you can go visit the singing sand dunes. If you go to Kazakhstan, probably leave the Borat references at home. I don't know that they take too kindly to the Borat stuff over there, but maybe they got over it, right? The movie's been out long enough that maybe they got over it. But go visit it. I'd love to go to Kazakhstan sometime. So maybe we can all plan a field trip there, right? Great. The Belgian UFO Wave. The Belgian UFO Wave refers to a series of reported sightings of UFOs that occurred in Belgium from 1989 to 1990. The sheer amount of these sightings gained significant attention in Belgium and internationally. The wave of sightings began in late 1989 and continued into 1990. And most consider the active period to have occurred between November 1989 and April 1990. Thousands of people reported seeing unidentified flying objects or strange objects in the sky, including well-documented incidents involving police officers, military personnel, and other members of the public. Witnesses described large triangular-shaped craft with bright lights in silent flight. The objects were often seen hovering or moving at high speeds. One of the most famous sightings occurred on the night of March 30th, 1990, when multiple witnesses reported seeing a massive triangular craft over the city of Eupen. The object was described as having 3 bright white lights at each corner and a red light in the center. The Belgian Air Force became involved in the investigation. 2 F-16 fighter jets were dispatched to intercept and investigate the objects. Radar operators even confirmed that unknown objects were detected, but the jets could not visually identify them. The Belgian UFO wave caused an influx of UFO researchers and scientists to be fascinated with this phenomenon. The GPAN study, conducted by the Belgian government, aimed to analyze the sightings, and the findings indicated that many reports contained credible witness accounts of UFOs. These sightings, or the wave, had widespread media attention, leading to an increase in public interest in UFO phenomena. There are lots of documentaries and articles about these events. I think I've made it pretty clear. I believe that we are not alone in the universe, right? I think it's impossible for us to be alone in the universe. However, I also think that if, a life in the universe was trying to contact us, they would do a better job of it. So when I see stuff like this, I generally assume it's a type of drone or other type of flying object that might have been involved. Maybe, this was still during, times when, the United States and Russia were building various different things. Maybe this is some sort of a United States or Russian experimental aircraft. But I don't know. I don't know what these are. And obviously Belgium didn't know what these were either. Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi Nakamoto is the pseudonym of a person or persons who created Bitcoin. You all know what Bitcoin is. But I bet you didn't know that the creator of Bitcoin, no one knows who did it. Probably a good idea that he or she or they are, not identifiable. Here is what we know. The concept of Bitcoin was published in October 2008 in a paper called the White Paper, detailing how it could operate as a decentralized digital currency that relies on cryptographic proof instead of trust in a central authority. Nakamoto mined the first block of the Bitcoin blockchain, known as the Genesis block, on January 3rd, 2009. The block contained a message referencing a newspaper headline, which has led to further speculation about why Nakamoto created Bitcoin. Nakamoto was actively involved in the development of Bitcoin during its early days, communicating with other developers and users via forums and email. Nakamoto contributed to the software and addressed various issues related to Bitcoin's development. In late 2010, Nakamoto gradually reduced their involvement in Bitcoin development and eventually stopped communicating entirely. The last known communication from Nakamoto occurred in 2010. At that time, they vanished from the public eye. Over the years, numerous individuals have been proposed as the real identity of Satoshi Nakamoto, including cryptographers, computer scientists, and economic theorists. Some people have been suggested to be Nakamoto are Nick Szabo, Hal Finney, and Dorian Nakamoto, among others. However, no one has proven Nakamoto's identity. As all of you know, Bitcoin has had a profound impact on finance technology and the concept of decentralized currencies. and it has led to thousands of other cryptocurrencies and a large discussion about digital currency, blockchain technology, and economic systems. And lots of people spamming Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc. about Bitcoin. The Rosetta Stone. No, I'm not talking about the software to help you learn, Spanish before you go to Cancun. The Rosetta Stone is a key artifact in deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphs, an ancient writing system from Egypt. It was discovered in 1799, and it played a crucial role in understanding the language and culture of ancient Egypt. The Rosetta Stone was discovered by French soldiers during Napoleon Bonaparte's campaign in Egypt. It was found in the town of Rosetta, which is now called Rashid, and is believed to date back to 196 BC. The stone features the same text inscribed in 3 scripts: hieroglyphic, Demotic, and Greek. The inscription on the Rosetta Stone is a decree praising the accomplishments and outlining the benefits of ancient Egypt. The multilingual nature allowed scholars to compare the known Greek texts to the hieroglyphic and demotic versions. Linguist Jean-François Champollion, I'm sure I nailed the pronunciation, is credited with successfully decoding the hieroglyphics in the early 1820s using the Greek text as a reference. This breakthrough opened up the study of ancient Egyptian language and culture. Really, this is one of the most important archaeological finds in history. And it allowed us to be able to understand and read hieroglyphics. It's pretty far-sighted that this text was created so that someone could find it and be able to learn Egyptian, from where we are today. It is housed in the British Museum in London, where it is a popular exhibit. Ambrose Bierce. Ambrose Bierce is an American short story writer, journalist, poet, and Civil War veteran who is best known for his satirical writings. He is renowned for a sharp wit, dark humor, and insightful commentary on human nature and society. Kind of like me, right? Born in Meigs County, Ohio, Bierce grew up in a large family and was largely self-educated. He moved to Indiana for a time before eventually settling in San Francisco, California. Bierce enlisted in the Union Army during the American Civil War. His experience in the war influenced his writing. After the war, he became a journalist, and he worked for various newspapers and magazines, and people enjoyed his sharp, critical style. He is known for works that blend realism and horror with a focus on the absurdities of life. I like this guy. Sounds like my kind of content. As he got older, Bierce traveled to Mexico during the Mexican Revolution, where he supposedly sought to join the revolutionary forces. And he disappeared in 1914 under mysterious circumstances. And no one knows what happened to him. Maybe he faked his own death. Maybe something horrible happened to him. Maybe he just lived out his days, enjoying Mexico. The June 1962 Alcatraz escape attempt. I think we've all seen this movie, but the June 1962 Alcatraz escape attempt was the escape by 3 inmates from the Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, which was located on Alcatraz Island in San Francisco Bay. This is one of the most well-known prison break attempts in American history. The escape was carried out by 3 men, Frank Morris and John and Clarence England, who were brothers. Morris and the England brothers were all convicted of robbery at some point. Frank Morris is known as the leader of the group, and they planned their escape for several months. They made makeshift tools using various items they had in prison, such as spoons, to dig through the walls of their cells. On June 11th, 1962, the 3 men managed to create a hole in the wall of their cells large enough to crawl through. They then made their way to an unused area of the prison, climbed up to the roof, and then climbed down to the ground, gathered their equipment, and made their way to the shoreline of the island. They constructed a raft made from raincoats, which they used to attempt the swim to the mainland. They also created dummy heads of themselves to place in their beds, tricking the guards into believing they were asleep. It's sort of wild when you think of all of the content, especially children's content involving escaping, like Looney Tunes and stuff like that, escaping from prison with a spoon, digging out, and then like the trope of like putting something in a bed that makes it look like someone's in the bed. Like there's just a lot here that has sort of permeated our culture. After they discovered the escape, a massive search operation ensued involving the Coast Guard, the FBI, and other agencies. But the escapees were never found. Some people believe they drowned in the treacherous waters of the bay, while others believe they reached the mainland and escaped. It's sort of fascinating to think that they never figured out what happened to these guys. I kind of like the idea that they sort of got out. In 2015, a letter surfaced purportedly written by John England claiming he was still alive and stating that both he and Morris had made it to freedom. Now, is the letter real? Who knows, right? But I think most people like the idea of these guys escaping. It reminds me of those guys that managed to escape from the Municipal Correctional Center in Chicago, but they caught those guys pretty quickly. I just don't think that most people, I just don't really think a type of escape like this could happen in our time. So I feel like they would be able to find these guys pretty fast. The Beaumont Children. The Beaumont Children were 3 young siblings who disappeared from Adelaide Beach in Australia on January 26, 1966. Jane, Arna, and Grant. Jane was 9, Arna was 7, Grant was 4. The children took a short bus ride from their home to the beach. They were seen playing on the beach and at a nearby shop, but vanished sometime during the day. Despite an extensive search, no trace of the children has ever been found. And this case is one of Australia's most infamous unsolved mysteries. Now, the last sighting of the kids was by a postman who reported seeing the children with a tall blonde man at the beach, but this man has never been identified. A woman reported seeing a man leaving a changing room in the area with a suitcase that seemed too heavy for him, which raised suspicions, but the suitcase and that man were never found. Over the years, several individuals have been investigated as potential suspects, but none have been linked to this case. This case remains open, and the police continue to receive and investigate tips and leads about this disappearance. Now, the thing that sort of blows my mind about this case is, like, where were the children? Like, there was a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old all just went to the beach by themselves with no parents. And maybe this case is one of the reasons why I have that belief. You know, I could tell you that seems too young, especially with a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. I mean, a 9-year-old's what? A second grader? They go hop on the bus and go out for a day by themselves. The Hoia-Baciu Forest. Not going to try to pronounce that one again, but it's a dense woodland located in Romania. And it's known as one of the most haunted forests in the world, often referred to as the Bermuda Triangle of Romania. There are numerous reports of unusual phenomena and paranormal activity within the forest. There are stories of people vanishing within the forest, sometimes reappearing years later with no memory of where they'd been. There are also numerous reports of UFO sightings in the area, including strange lights and even alien beings. Others have seen ghosts in the area, have a sense of being watched or followed. Electronic devices are said to malfunction or behave strangely within the forest, with compasses spinning erratically and cameras failing to operate properly. And some people claim to experience physical symptoms like nausea, headaches, anxiety, and even burns while in the forest. The forest also has some unusually shaped trees that are bent or twisted into formations. Scientists attribute the strange occurrences to natural phenomena like magnetic anomalies, infrasound, or even gases being released from the soil. And another factor is, of course, people entering the forest are primed to expect paranormal things, and therefore are more likely to interpret the things they see as paranormal things. Could also be, you know, some type of radiation in the area that might cause the electronics to have those problems. This is a popular tourist destination in Romania. Again, I suggest you should go visit. You can take me. I'd go with you. I'll go with you if you want to go. I think it's likely that, you know, while the saying is, you know, scientists have these natural reasons for these things to occur, right? But those natural things are still kind of spooky, right? Like, even if it's just like a bizarre field of magnetism in the area or, you know, high radiation in the area, it still makes the place, you know, abnormal and strange and spooky. You know, just having a concrete reason for it doesn't necessarily change the fact that these things occur. So I think this is a cool story, and I think it's a cool place. It would probably be a cool place to visit. The Fiji Mermaid. The Fiji Mermaid is a famous hoax that captivated audiences in the 19th century. It was a creation made by attaching the torso and head of a monkey to the tail of a fish. It was then presented as the mummified remains of a creature that was supposedly half human, half fish, a mermaid. Of course, the Fiji Mermaid was exhibited by P.T. Barnum, the famous circus guy. And because he was a master of publicity and hype, he managed to get large crowds to go see the Fiji Mermaid. The term Fiji was a marketing term because of the, you know, exoticism and mystery associated with the Fiji Islands. This reminds me, there was a great X-Files episode called The Fiji Mermaid. One of my favorites, and one of those episodes that is sort of burned into my mind. I remember having that episode taped. Like, I was like 10 watching the X-Files. You know, that was sort of not where I started on spooky stuff, but it definitely was in my wheelhouse as a kid. And I remember I taped that episode and would watch it over and over and over. I was out that day that episode aired and taped the X-Files to watch that episode. Eventually, the Fiji Mermaid was exposed as a hoax. I'm sure people were upset. But, it goes to show you that, like this whole idea of creating hoaxes and, making fake things and using photography tricks, that's not just something new on social media. That's something that's been going on for centuries. There's always been people creating creepy things to trick people into being creeped out. The original Fiji Mermaid is believed to have been lost in a fire, but there are other examples that are in museums and private collections. I don't know. I think it would be kind of weird to just sort of have one of these that are made from an actual monkey and fish corpse sewed together. But I also know that, if you can go down some really weird paths and taxidermy on the taxidermy internet, who am I to judge, right? What do I know? The Webdriver Torso. The Webdriver Torso is a mysterious YouTube channel that sparked a wave of intrigue back in 2013. It would post thousands of short abstract videos featuring geometrical shapes and colors with bizarre sounds. Most videos consist of a red rectangle moving against a blue background with other basic shapes and colors. The audio is often a series of beeps, clicks, or static noises, sometimes resembling dial tones or electronic signals. I'll play one of those videos here. This channel would upload thousands of these videos, sometimes multiple times per day for several years. Nobody knows what the channel's purpose was or who the creators were, so there's all this sort of speculation, right? Some people want to believe that this is a secret code, and maybe secret organizations are using this code to communicate with each other. Others just suggest it was some sort of automated system testing YouTube's video processing or compression algorithms. Others suggest it's an art project. And there were people who even believed it was aliens. Aliens uploading to YouTube. This mystery was solved in 2014 when Google finally admitted that the Webdriver Torso was indeed an automated testing system used by YouTube engineers. Sorry if you had aliens. It was designed to ensure the platform could handle a high volume of uploads in various video formats. But, it still became sort of a legendary internet thing, right? The Mandela Effect. This has gotten very popular in the last few years, and the Mandela Effect is the collective false memories where a large group of people remember something differently than how it actually occurred. The term originated from widespread memories of Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, although he was eventually released and became the president of South Africa. Now, the Mandela Effect requires sort of a mass misinformation, right? You forgetting something isn't the Mandela Effect, right? I think the most popular, well, I think there are a few Mandela effects that speak to a lot of people. And for me, the two big ones are the Bernstein Bears and the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia. I know it was the Bernstein Bears. I know it. I had so many of those stupid books. I remember telling my mom about this, who read these books and bought these books for me, and she didn't believe it until I pulled it out. I also have distinct memories of being in stores and staring at the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia. I can picture it. I have no idea where else I would have come up with that. Like most things, though, the internet kind of takes this stuff too far, and there's sort of a lot of theories about, oh, we're shifting realities and stuff like that. And like, no, I believe it's a mass misremembering. You know, it's sort of like the way our brains sort of play tricks on us and just sort of fill stuff in. But, you know, the Berenstain Bears and the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia, I'm still just sort of hung up on those two. There are other types of reality glitches. Some people like to call them glitches in the Matrix. I had this really weird glitch in the Matrix once where I was at my parents' house. It was a Sunday. I was watching football. It was the noon game. And I remember I was watching a game and the Kansas City Chiefs were playing. And I went to the bathroom and I came out and there was an entirely different football game on my television. And I remember switching to Fox from CBS, being like, oh, it must have changed. And the Fox game wasn't the game where the Chiefs were playing either. And it was way too early in the game. It was like the second quarter. It was way too early in the game because, you know, sometimes when the games aren't good, they'll like switch games. I remember looking online to figure out what happened and there was nothing. You know, my parents didn't have like, I wasn't watching Red Zone or anything like that. I don't know. Highway trolls. I had trouble sort of figuring this one out, what this one is supposed to mean. And really, there's sort of two options, right? There's like internet trolls in the highway context. And this is sort of what I believe this is referring to, which is, you know, where people sort of hack those signs. And, you know, you'll see these up all the place where people hack one of those signs so it can say like zombie apocalypse happening or something like that. Though there's sort of this other idea that, like, you know, there are various things that guard cities or whatever. I don't know. This one's sort of up in the air for me. I don't really have a good explanation for it. Skyquakes. Skyquakes are unexplained loud noises that seem to come from the sky. The sounds are similar to thunder or sonic booms or explosions. And they've been reported around the world. Disneyland's secret tunnels. I know what you're thinking with this one. We're not going to go there. Disneyland's secret tunnels, or utilidors, are part of an underground network designed to manage the park's operations while preserving the experience for the guest. The primary purpose of these tunnels is to allow cast members who are Disney employees to move between different areas of the park without being seen by guests. This helps maintain the illusion of the themed environment. So characters in costume or not in costume can move around without disrupting the experience. You don't want to see, like, I don't know, the Marvel people in the Magic Kingdom or anything like that, right? It turns out that Disney World has a lot more of these tunnels than Disneyland, which also makes sense because Disney World was built after Disneyland. And, they built Disneyland and they said, oh, you know what we should have here? We should have an ability for people to be able to travel without being seen underground. Oh, yeah, let's build that in Disney World, right? You can also transport supplies, garbage, waste, food, other equipment behind the scenes. That way you don't have people, you don't have a guy with a whole bunch of trash, walking by Cinderella, ruining everybody's pictures, right? And really, this is a great design issue, and there are a lot of cities that sort of have underground tunnels that use this sort of design thing too, because it allows people to travel quickly throughout the area, keep the public away from this area so you're not abutted up against the public. The man from Taured. The man from Taured is an urban legend that describes a supposed case of a time traveler or interdimensional traveler. As the story goes, it begins at the Tokyo airport, where a man arrives in customs with a passport from a country called Taured. When customs check his password, they are unable to find any record of this country, right? You've never heard of Taured. It's not a real country. Whatever. As the story goes, the man looks very confused and insists that Taured is real and lies between France and Spain. So you got customs being like, what are you talking about, dude? And some guy being like, what the hell? What do you mean? That's where I'm from. It's this country. So the authorities interrogate the man further, asking him questions. Where did you come from? Why are you traveling? It comes out that he speaks multiple languages and he has some sort of business dealings in this Taured country. Some versions of this story, he's taken to somewhere for further questioning and then he just disappears. And he's never seen again. Now, this makes for a great story. There's no actual documentation that this ever happened. So, I would imagine that this story might come from some sort of fiction writer, came up with this idea. And it's a good idea. It sounds like a great idea for a science fiction story, right? Elsagate. Elsagate is creepy. And this is a whole thing on YouTube, right? You guys may remember this one. Elsagate consists of this flood of inappropriate content marketed towards kids that had themes of violence, sexual innuendo, or other mature topics. They typically involved popular characters to attract children's views, such as Elsa from the movie Frozen, Spider-Man, Batman, other, sort of characters that people would like, Mickey Mouse, Peppa Pig. These videos would use thumbnails using these popular characters to attract views and taking advantage of the YouTube algorithm, which led to the proliferation of these videos marketed towards children. These videos managed to autoplay, or the creator of these videos managed to get these videos to autoplay after legitimate children's content, which would expose these young viewers to this very strange, alarming content. There was a massive public backlash to Elsagate, as there should be. the big problem here with Elsagate was it wasn't just, parents who, were just letting their kids sort of run rampant on the internet. These were popping up on like YouTube Kids, which was supposed to be just specifically YouTube videos for kids. And these videos would pop up in this instance. And this led to YouTube taking more responsibility in regulating content. It updated its policies, improved its content moderation to try to limit these inappropriate videos targeted at children. But it's impossible with a site as big as YouTube for someone to personally review every single video. So the people who are creating these videos continue to find ways to beat the system to keep getting these videos out there before they get banned. It's why the term parental guidance exists and why, parents need to be aware of what their children are watching. My content isn't for kids. I know that, and I don't market my content towards kids. Who was responsible for Elsagate? Well, there's a lot of theories about this, and some get deeply conspiratorial. I think the main idea for a lot of these videos was to just sort of create these content farms that pushed out these monetized videos to just make money, get clicks, get people interested, and that's sort of where this came from. Now, there are theories that people were making these videos specifically to harm children, and I'm not saying that some of these videos weren't designed specifically to harm children, because there are people who want to harm children for some reason, and especially with some of the violence and sexual nature of some of these videos, there's no excuse for making them. But I don't really believe that there was a collective decision, a collective unified leader of Elsagate creating these things. I think it was more you had a bunch of content farms that just sort of kept spinning off content. And, the more inappropriate content got sort of lumped in with some of this more confusing content, which became this sort of overall Elsagate concept. And finally, grave robbing for morons. There is a famous video, grave robbing for morons. And it's unclear if this video is real or if it's some sort of satire. The original video features a teenager in the 1980s creating a tutorial on how to rob graves, and it's unclear if it's a joke or not. There have been sort of like spin-offs from this movie, and it sort of became sort of this internet legend. And again, it's unclear if it's a comedy, if it's satirical, but as things go on the internet, the responses and the second videos and the sequels or whatever are clearly satirical, making fun of this original video. So it's one of those weird videos that sort of popped up on the internet that has no sort of explanation, and then a bunch of people sort of ran through it and created more content under this idea. And that's it. We did it. That is tier 2 of the Unsolved Mysteries and Weird Things Iceberg by JuanThePickle. Thanks, Juan. We will start tier 3 soon. It's clear to me that this project isn't going to get done in October because of how long this is, but spooky season isn't over at Halloween. Spooky season and Christmas season sort of collide, right? And Christmas season can be spooky, so we're going to just keep going. I'm going to finish this iceberg, and we're going to do it for as long as it takes. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter and TikTok. My username is AKBruise. If you would like me to research a creepy, disturbing story or a spooky, disturbing story, send me an email. My email address is thespookylawyer@gmail.com. Like this video, share this video. There is a playlist that has all of these iceberg videos. Do me a favor and watch the playlist, all the way through. Send the playlist to your boss or your neighbor or your uncle and tell them to watch it all the way through, to help me out in the algorithm. Like this video, share this video. Comment, tell me your thoughts. Tell me your thoughts on some of these weird mysteries. I appreciate you watching my videos. It means a lot to me that you guys support me here. And as always, stay spooky.